Let me introduce Romina Arroyo from Córdoba. Like I said, and she's going to be speaking about complex and symmetric structures on almost a billion figures. Romina.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction. I would like to take back here. So today I'm going to speak about joint work in group agreement. So they are working, all of them are working. The idea of the talk so I'm going to start from the very beginning and I'm going to see but I'm going to introduce many definitions maybe you know. So I'm going to start with complex structure. And I'm going to start with the definition. So you may know what is a manifold. Talk about manifold, and the definition of a complex manifold is basically an adduct to the differential manifold. So here, so complex manifold will be so a differential manifold is basically M, which is locally homomorphic to a clear space. So every point you have a neighborhood, one and if you have another neighborhood, so these change of coordinates are different. And the definition of a complex manifold is analogous in the following sense. So we will have a topological space, which is homomorphic to now change coordinate in so of course if we identify if M is Rn, so if you see that complex manifolds are smooth manifolds of even dimension, and the first natural question is whether it's true or not, and the answer is that. So we need to ask a little bit more, and that is my motivation to introduce the following definition. That is a real differentiable manifold of given dimension, but with one structure, which is the nomorphism. The potential value satisfies these two conditions, where one identity and the this tensor or the image tensor vanishes. Where here we have the complex of this nomorphism J and this bracket. So we know that the values of this manifold complex space or we have many examples. So we talk about for example. I would like to present some results in this context that Jorge talk about a little bit. So here, we are interested on the group that multiple also groups and this structure value is that is map energy multiplication of the group is smooth, so map energy translations are smooth. Smooth, and we will focus on these structures, complex structures, which are left invariant. So the definition of the left invariant is this one, and basically this was the correspondence that Jorge was about. So if you have a group and some structure, one geometric structure, in this case, the complex structure, and you focus on the invariant, so then you can, if you have a group, basically you can focus or you can think in the tangent space of the identity, that is the space, and you can go in the vector space in the bracket, which is the bracket here, and not. Okay.
I have another one. For now, if you want to continue.
Okay.
Just do.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to, can you see yes, the arrow. Okay, so if you have a Lie group, so you can think in the tangent space on the identity, so that will be a vector space, and you can endow this vector space with a bracket, which is this is also which is a Lie bracket. So there I wrote the definition. So here I wrote even dimensional, but in general, Lie algebra is not needed to be even dimensional, but in this case, it will be. So basically, this bracket satisfies two conditions. So the first one is that is alternating, and the second one is Jacobi identity, which is the same that to say that if you consider this map, which is called the adjoint map, for every x, you consider. Okay. And what is the? What is the? And what? So if we consider these maps, which are called the adjoint map, these are co-identities, to say that ones are the set of satisfy the and again, if you think your complex structure identity, so you will have an endomorphism that I call here JD, and endomorphism satisfy these two properties. So basically, the same two conditions that I got in the first slide. But here, the bracket that I am considering here is the bracket on the Lie algebra. It's not, it's a bracket on the Lie algebra. And the good thing of this picture is that we have a correspondence. So if you have a Lie algebra with some structure satisfying these conditions, so then you can construct a Lie group with a complex extraction, which is rectified. That was basically the correspondence that already spoke about in his talk. But in this context, for complex structures. So the idea is that during this talk, we'll be working on the right side, So we'll be working at the algebra level. And our idea is try to construct examples of solvable Lie algebras and complex structures at the Lie algebra level, so satisfying this thing. From now on, our notation will be G, J, J. So here I got some examples of the algebras. Basically, if I am going to put all the examples, basically in low dimensions. So the first example, so in general, if you have a vector space of any dimension, so you can endow this vector space with this bracket. So the bracket that is 0 for every pair of elements on the vector space. And these algebras are called abelian in general. And you have an abelian Lie algebra in any dimension. That is in general. But then I would like to write some examples. The following examples are in low dimension, and then one example which is different. And my idea is try to give you the flavor of the Lie algebras with some examples. So the first example basically is, so what happened with Lie algebra of dimension 2. So in general, you can have an abelian Lie algebra of dimension 2, or you can have a Lie algebra of dimension 2, which is not abelian. But changing basis, so if you write in a basis, changing basis, so you can write the bracket of this Lie algebra like this. So at some point, there are two examples of Lie algebras of dimension 2, and this is the non-abelian. This is written in a basis, and then we can extend bilinearly and in a skew symmetric way. So in dimension 3, one Lie algebra can be written in this basis, X, Y, Z, and consider all the non-zero brackets given by this bracket in this basis, and then extending bilinearly and in a skew symmetric way. This Lie algebra is a Lie algebra of dimension 3, and it is called Heisenberg. And this is a semi-simple, the last one is a semi-simple Lie algebra, basically with this bracket. So here it's pretty easy to see that if you have two matrices on SL and R, and you write the bracket like this, it's easy to see that the bracket of two matrices on SL and R has trace equal to 0. Has trace equal to 0, so this is a good definition. But during this talk, I am interested on nilpotent or solvable Lie algebras. So in general, if you have a Lie algebra, so you can consider these two series. So in the first one, basically, so the zero step is the Lie algebra. The first one is the space generated by the brackets. So here I am taking all the brackets X, Y, with X and Y on G, and then the space generated by this bracket. And then I can continue and define recursively J plus 1, so like this. So now what I am considering the space generated by the brackets of elements on G and elements in the previous step. And the same with the second one. All these, so both series satisfy the following things. So any step of the series are ideals in this sense. So when you do the bracket of one element on G and one of the elements on these steps, stay in the same subspace, and they are descending in this sense, and also they are related. Okay, so if the J step of the second series is contained in the J step of the first series. And so this is the definition of a nilpotent or a solvable Lie algebra. So basically, a Lie algebra is called nilpotent if at some point one of the ideals in the first series vanishes. Okay. And if it's called K-step nilpotent if the previous ideal is different to 0. And the definition analogous is with solvable Lie algebras. Something that we can see from this property is that if you have a nilpotent Lie algebra, the Lie algebra will be solvable. And a theorem, which is important, is that a Lie algebra is nilpotent if these adjoint maps that I introduced at the beginning are nilpotent in the same as endomorphism or matrices. So there exists some m such that at x at m is equal to 0. So here I am trying to show you what happened with the examples that our examples of the beginning. So in general, if you have an abelian Lie algebra, so basically these two steps, so these two ideals are equal to 0. So this Lie algebra is nilpotent because the first series vanishes in the first step. If you consider the second example of our Lie algebra, so this is the bracket. This Lie algebra will not be nilpotent because the space generated by the first bracket will be the space generated by Y. And then when you consider again the following, the second step, Gj will be always the space generated by Y. So at some point this will not be nilpotent, but it will be solvable because the second step of the second series is equal to 0. So at some point I am showing you one example of a Lie algebra which is solvable but not nilpotent. So the converse is not true. The converse of this line blue is not true. So Heisenberg is an example of two-step nilpotent Lie algebra, which is two-step nilpotent Lie algebra, so the second step vanishes. And here I am showing, so I know that in the previous talk, so many, Jorge and the other speaker were speaking about semi-simple Lie algebra. So basically the last example is an example in which you have one example of Lie algebra, which is not nilpotent, which is not solvable. So we have more Lie algebra, so solvable, they are not exhaust all Lie algebras. But so we are interested on complex structures on solvable Lie algebras. So basically, we are looking for endomorphisms of Lie algebras satisfying these two properties. So the first one is that the square is minus the identity, and this Naegelius condition. And so the first place to look for complex structures are Lie algebras of dimension 2. But of course, if you consider the abelian Lie algebra of dimension 2, so this condition is trivially satisfied because everything is 0. So if you can construct an endomorphism satisfied that the square is minus the identity, so you will have an example of a complex structure, and that is pretty easy. The same with the non-abelian of dimension 2. So the first examples, that meaningful examples, are in dimension 4. So first of all, I am going to try to give you to show you how what are the known results. So if you focus on nilpotent Lie algebras in dimension 4, so we have 3 examples. So the first one is the abelian, and it admits a complex structure. The second one is this one, which is the sum of the Heisenberg Lie algebra with R. So basically, if we think that this is a basis, and these are all the brackets which are non-zero in the basis, this is basically this Lie algebra. This is two-step nilpotent because H3 is two-step nilpotent. And this J will give us a complex structure in the following sense. So we have to define an endomorphism in our basis. So we will define like this, and then if we want that the J square is minus the identity, so we need to ask that J of X2 is equal to minus X1, and J of X4 equal to minus X3. And this will give us a complex structure. And the third nilpotent Lie algebra of dimension 4 is this one. And this one does not admit a complex structure. So in dimension 4, there is an example of a Lie algebra which do not admit a complex structure. And this was proved by Gosse and Rem. Basically, they proved that if you have a nilpotent Lie algebra which has maximal step of nilpotency, so this is a 4-dimension Lie algebra, and the step of nilpotency is 3, which is the maximum number. Those Lie algebras do not admit a complex structure. So at some point, the theorem that these authors prove is that we have a class of nilpotent Lie algebras which do not admit a complex structure. And the first case holds in dimension 4. So then, when you look what happened, or what happened in dimension 4 in the solvable case, so this was studied by Snow, that I forgot to write, and Gabriela Obando. She's also working in Latin America. And there is a classification. So there are some examples which admit and some of them which are not. So now what happened in dimension 6? So in dimension 6, if we focus on the nilpotent Lie algebras, so we have 34 different nilpotent Lie algebras. So up to isomorphism, there are 34 classes, and only 18 admit complex structures. This was proved by Salomon. And if we focus, so in the general solvable case, so there is classification of solvable Lie algebras, but there is no complete answer about complex structure. So it's not known where solvable Lie algebras admit or not admit complex structures. So in general, so what happened from this dimension? Well, there are infinity many Lie algebras, solvable Lie algebras. Infinity many. So in general, and from dimension 8, there is no classification even in the nilpotent case. No classification of nilpotent Lie algebras. And of course, why we have examples in all this dimension? Because it's low dimension and we have tables, so we can analyze one by one what happened and if these Lie algebras admit or not complex structure. But if we do not have classification of the Lie algebras, it's pretty difficult to try to prove something about these complex structures. So the idea of this work with this group of women is try to analyze what happened in a class of solvable Lie algebras. And this class is the almost abelian Lie algebras. So basically, what is an almost abelian Lie algebra is a Lie algebra which has a large abelian ideal. So an abelian ideal of codimension 1. So basically, so here, these Lie algebras can be written as a semi-direct product of one element which do not lies in the abelian ideal H, semi-direct product with H. And if you fix a basis on H, so you can write this adjoint as a matrix, okay, as a matrix X. So here, our Lie algebra has dimension m+1, and our matrix has the size is m. So if you have an almost abelian Lie algebra, so then you can write this matrix A. And if you have a matrix A, so you can write also an almost abelian Lie algebra with this semi-direct product. So it's pretty easy to see that GA is two-step solvable because when you do the when you do the first step, G supra 1 is equal to the ideal, and then if you do the bracket of the ideal with ideal, it will be 0. And thanks to Engel theorem, these Lie algebras are nilpotent if and only if this matrix A is nilpotent. Okay, so all the information that we need to understand this almost abelian Lie algebra is encoded in this matrix A, basically. So we have this result from Freiberg, which said that if we have two Lie algebras like this, so they are isomorphic if and only if they are conjugate up to scale. And in the case that both matrices are nilpotent, so they are basically conjugate. Okay, this is linear algebra. So in order to write our results, so here I am introducing some notation. So we are
we are calling Jn lambda, these Jordan blocks with eigenvalues lambda. And when the eigenvalue is 0, so we are just notating by Jn. And we are gonna call 0S, so the matrix which is 0, S times S. And we are use this notation in order to write block diagonal matrices, okay? So this will be our notation. So, for instance, if you take an nilpotent matrix, so A will be conjugate, so a big matrix written in block diagonal like this, where we have Q1 times the Jordan blocks of size JM1, and then JM2, and go on. And at the end, we are going to have these big zeros. So any nilpotent matrix will be conjugated to one of these one. And here, so this is basically an observation that we are going to use then, so you are going to understand why I am stating this. But basically, if you have a matrix like this, where A is a vector which is 0. This is basically a number, a real number. This is the matrix. I think the block. Okay. If you consider one matrix like this, which is nilpotent, so then all the eigenvalues has to be 0. So A has to be 0, and all the eigenvalues of capital B has to be 0. So capital B will be nilpotent. And here, so we prove this result that if B is nilpotent and you take some vector W in the image of B, so these matrices are conjugate to these matrices. And why this is important? Because, for instance, if B lies in the image of capital B, so here this matrix will be conjugate to something with a 0 here. So then will be conjugate to the Jordan form of B plus a 0, okay? So we are gonna add one 0. And why this is important? Because imagine you have the Jordan form of capital B written like this. So a matrix like this has to be conjugate to one of these three cases. So basically, the first case is the case that I stated in the previous lemma. The second one is telling us that basically, if you take, so basically one of these Jordan blocks here is increasing his size in one dimension. Let's say the Jordan block JMD is increases in one dimension here, and the other ones are the same except one of the blocks of MD. So I am showing now an example. Or the big 0 decreases in one dimension, but appears one J2. So here I wrote some examples. So imagine your capital V is this one here, and your V is in the image like this in this example. So then this matrix will be conjugate, so this block, so this, the Jordan form of this matrix plus a 0, and the Jordan form of this matrix is basically here. We have J3, 1, 0, and 1, 0, so here we have 2 zeros. But if capital B is like this, and the vector V here is not in the image of capital V, for instance, like this, so here we have that this Jordan block is increasing in one dimension here and appears at J4, okay? And in this case, if we have a vector which is not in the image, like this, so here you can see that here we can construct a J2, okay? So these matrices are conjugated like this. So at some point, so this proposition is telling us, if you know the Jordan form of capital B, so we will know what are the options for the Jordan form of C. And why this time of matrices important? Why? Because of this theorem of Jorge Lauret and Edwin Rodriguez Valencia, which tell us when an almost abelian Lie algebra admits a complex structure. So the theorem said that an almost abelian admits a complex structure if and only if M is conjugate to a C like this, okay? Where V satisfies this property. So V commute basically with this matrices, with this matrix Jm, okay? So if we know how looks the Jordan form of a matrix capital V commuting with a matrix like this, so we will know what are the different Jordan forms for our C, and we will know when Jm admit a complex structure. So basically, in the nilpotent case, so here in the nilpotent case, that is when the eigenvalues of C are equal to 0, so when A is equal to 0 and capital B is nilpotent, so we are in this kind of matrix B, matrix B. So B satisfies this condition in the theorem of Lauret and Rodriguez Valencia if and only if the Jordan form of B satisfies that this big 0 is even, so the size is even, and all of these power, well, all of these Qi are even too, okay? So we have the Jordan blocks appears uneven even times, so that the times are even, and also the zero. So then, using the proposition, so knowing the Jordan form of capital B, so we can know the Jordan form of M, and basically we have three options like in the proposition. So the first one is associated with this B, capital B. So the second one is when a J2 appears. So that is the third case, and the third case is basically related with the second case in our proposition. So basically, when the matrix is nilpotent, so this theorem is telling us what happens. So basically, this solves the problem of which almost abelian nilpotent Lie algebras admit a complex structure. So what happens when M is not nilpotent? Well, when M is not nilpotent, so the problem is more difficult and a little bit more technical. So here we can have different eigenvalues in our matrices. And we are going to introduce a little bit of notation. So if you have a matrix with one eigenvalue, real eigenvalue B, so the different formal Jordan form of this matrix A can be like this or like this. Okay, and we are going to associate one object we call lambda, so one tuple which is called lambda, related with the size of the Jordan blocks and the power of this the times that appears these Jordan blocks and the multiples of the identity. So we have these two cases. And the other case is when the spectrum of a matrix has one eigenvalue, complex eigenvalue, and its conjugate. So here, we want to introduce these big matrices. And A will be conjugate to, so we have two options here again. So at some point, and of course, we are going to endow to these matrices tuples like this, again, associated to these Jordan forms. So at the end, in general, so if you have a matrix in which the spectrum is given by these lambdas. So here I brought the different eigenvalues. The first one are real eigenvalues, and the last one are complex eigenvalues. So, so the matrix C will be conjugate to a matrix which is written in Jordan forms. So in the Jordan form that I wrote in these two previous, so like this or like this, with the different eigenvalues. And of course, the theorem will be related with these lambdas. Again, we need to know what happened when capital E commutes one is JM that appears in Jorge's and Edwin's theorem. And basically, a matrix is conjugate to one matrix commuted with a J, like the theorem of Jorge, if and only if satisfies some conditions related with this lambda, so related with the Jordan form of B. So if you have, if you take any real eigenvalue of B, so it has to satisfy that all this number has to be even, or if it is a multiply of lambda, so the size has to be even, okay? So our main theorem, or one of our results with this group of women, is the following. So imagine your M is like this, and all the eigenvalues B are equal to this A. Like this. So then GM admits a complex structure if and only if the nilpotent part of the matrix admits a complex structure. Okay, so if all the eigenvalues B are A, so we are going to see what happens with this matrix minus A at the everything. And if B has other eigenvalues, so JM, so the almost abelian Lie algebra will admit a complex structure if and only if the nilpotent part admits, the part related with the eigenvalue A admits a complex structure, and the other part, so the part with the other eigenvalues, satisfy the same condition than the proposition in the previous slide. Okay, so basically, so with these two results, we have, so we know what happened in any case. So when an almost abelian Lie algebra in general admits a complex structure or not. But we also study what happened with symplectic structures. So again, I am thinking at the Lie algebra level, and a symplectic structure on a Lie algebra G is a non-degenerate to form on G, satisfy that this thing is equal to 0. So the derivative of this form is equal to 0. And again, so here we have a result of Jorge Lauret and Cynthia Will, which tell us when an almost abelian Lie algebra admits a complex structure, a symplectic structure. And basically is similar, is analogous to the previous theorem, but now B has to satisfy that is in SP, okay? So now we need to understand when this matrices, capital B, lies in these spaces. And again, first, we analyze what happened in the nilpotent case. And this theorem says that basically a capital B, so if this is the Jordan form of a capital B, so it's conjugate to something in SP2M if and only if this S is even and these QI are even when the blocks, when the size of these blocks are odd. Okay, so it's what do you say? Is weaker than the other condition. So this is our theorem. So here we have a nilpotent almost abelian Lie algebra. So M is nilpotent. This is the Jordan form of M. And we can say when almost abelian Lie algebra admits a complex structure, speaking about, so related with this Jordan form. And again, we have one proposition related with capital B, which is more complicated than the previous one. So here, for instance, B is conjugate to something in SP if and only if, and we have the case when lambda is equal to 0, but we also have this other case when lambda is complex. So it has to happen that minus lambda has to be, again, an eigenvalue of capital B, and this is the relation with the lambdas. So here, if we have a matrix like this, and A an eigenvalue, capital B, so minus A has to be an eigenvalue of capital B. So here we have two eigenvalues, and in this case, JM will so only two eigenvalues, and JM will admit a symplectic structure if and only if. Now, this new matrix, so the almost abelian Lie algebra related with this new matrix admit a symplectic structure, and now this new matrix is nilpotent. So we are looking again the nilpotent part of the matrices, and this is the picture when you have more eigenvalues than A. If we have
eigenvalue A, minus A has to be an eigenvalue, but also can have more eigenvalues and these are the three cases. So basically, if A is equal to 0, so we can write M, or M will be conjugate to something like this, and it will admit a complex symplectic structure if and only if the nilpotent part admit a symplectic structure, and the other part is conjugate to something on SP. It can happen that B has no A as an eigenvalue, and in that case, it will be so basically JM will admit a simplex structure if and only if Q is conjugate to something to SP. And it can happen that Q have more eigenvalues, and this is not the general case, and JM will admit a symplectic structure if and only if the part related with A admit a symplectic structure and the rest of the matrix is conjugate to something on SP. And here there are many consequences related with this result that I wanted to mention. For instance, if you analyze what happened with almost abelian Lie algebras in the nilpotent case, so every M in this slice will be nilpotent. If you want to analyze what happened with this nilpotent almost abelian of step 2, 3, and 4, all of them admit symplectic structures, for instance. Any 8-dimensional nilpotent almost abelian Lie algebra admit a symplectic structure. So the first example, which do not admit a symplectic or a complex structure, is given in dimension 10 and is given by this matrix M. As I briefly mentioned, if an almost abelian Lie algebra admits a complex structure, then it has to admit a symplectic structure, and the converse is not true. So this is an example of a Lie algebra admitting a symplectic but not a complex structure. And here I wrote some examples in which admit both symplectics or complex structure, or do not admit symplectics or complex, or admit one of the structure but not the other one. And that's all. Thank you.